There have been some reports in the local media in Dominica and Antigua, in both these countries. And we have with us the Dominican opposition leader, Lennox Linton, on the reports of him being allegedly on Mehul Choksi's payroll. Let me go across straight to him. Mr. Linton, how do you respond to these reports? Is it true that you met Mr. Mehul Choksi's brother?
That is absolutely untrue. I do not know Mehul Choksi's brother. I do not know Mehul Choksi. I have never spoken to or with them. I have never seen them. I have never been in any meetings with them. If you notice the story in the Associated Times, which is some publication on the web, it says that I met with Mehul Choksi's brother in Marigot, Dominica, at my private residence. Well, I have no private residence in Marigot, Dominica at the moment because the private residence I had there was destroyed in the hurricane of 2017 and I have not been able to rebuild it. The story also said that meeting took place on Sunday in Marigot. I was not in Marigot on Sunday. I was in Marigot on Saturday evening. Our party had a public meeting in that area and we dealt with, among other things, the Mehul Choksi saga. So I was not in Marigot on Sunday, the 30th, and therefore could not have met Chetan Choksi or anybody else there. I have never received any money from anybody for anything resembling a favor or for doing anything or not doing anything or promising to do anything or not doing anything. I've never received any bribe in my life. And this entire story is an evil concoction. Responding to the statement I made yesterday as leader of the parliamentary opposition, expressing concern with the nature of the involvement of the government of Dominica in this Mehul Choksi matter.
Now, Mr. Linton, these reports go into much more greater detail. Now, you have denied any meeting at all or knowing this Mehul Choksi's brother. But these reports go into details of exchange of token money, saying that $200,000 was exchanged, which means cash was exchanged, is what they're alleging. And they're claiming election funding promise in the upcoming general elections. They talk about a 2-hour meeting, which of course you have already denied. And they mentioned that the token money was handed to you immediately after the meeting. Are you saying you have not taken any money from anybody over any meeting?
Not 1 cent.
On that day?
Not 1 cent. I met with absolutely nobody to do with anything about money or anything connected to Mehul Choksi or his brother or any family member or any associate of his or anybody at all. There was absolutely no payment made to me by anybody on that day, the day before, to do with anything that is being suggested at all. It is a total and absolute concoction. And I think Republic should concern itself with who the Associated Times is. Who are these people? What responsibility do they have? I mean, you spend your time in responsible media practice. And here you are talking to me in Dominica. You can find me, you know who I am the leader of the parliamentary opposition, but you're talking to me about a story that is totally untrue, that is published in an online paper called the Associated Times. But you have no idea who the Associated Times are. Who are the people behind that publication? It is total fake news, total and absolute fake news. Nothing about that story is true. Nothing about it is true.
So let me then ask you this question. Do you know anybody called Chetan Chinubai Choksi?
I do not. I've said before, I do not know the individual referred to in the story as the brother of Mehul Choksi. I do not know any family member of Choksi. I do not know Choksi himself. I have never met them. I have never spoken to them. I have absolutely no connection or relationship with them at all.
Yes. Let me put it this way, Mr. Linton. Okay, you've called it fake news, and we are carrying your interview and your version entirely. And as a responsible media house, we will carry your entire interview so that your side of the story goes out. Now, let me also ask you, Mr. Linton, as the opposition leader in Dominica, you're in a country where there is so much of media attention. I'm not sure there has been so much of attention in Dominica over a story as much as the story of Mehul Choksi, where the entire world media. I can assure you that 1.4 billion people are watching what's happening closely. As the opposition leader, would you support the deportation of Mr. Mehul Choksi as per the law if India wins that case in court?
We have no horses in this race. This is a matter between Mehul Choksi and the government and people of India, where he was born and where he was raised and where he made his money as a jeweler. It is not for me to decide what should happen or not happen with Mehul Choksi. We appreciate and we recognize that he's wanted by the Indian authorities for bank fraud. He's wanted for criminal conspiracy charges. He's wanted for criminal abuse of trust. He's wanted for money laundering. And all of those are very serious offenses, which the government of India, the authorities in India, the law enforcement authority in India have a right to prosecute, as well as Mr. Choksi has a right to defend himself. Mr. Choksi took citizenship of Antigua and Barbuda through the Citizenship by Investment program, and that entitled him to certain privileges in the state of Antigua and Barbuda, where he has been living for the past couple of years. We on this side of the world, and I'm sure India has it as well, live by something called the rule of law, or are required to live by the rule of law in the advancement of our civility. Now, there is a matter pending before the court in Antigua. The Antigua High Court is in the very same jurisdiction as the Dominica High Court. They're part of the Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court. And with the matter of his extradition and this whole question of the revocation of his Antigua citizenship and so on, pending before the Antigua High Court, you have Mr. Choksi being removed from Antigua. He claims it was forced, it was an abduction. He was brought to our country, Dominica, against his will, and that's a matter of grave concern to us in Dominica. And let me say, it is not that matters of this kind are new to us. We have had our fair share of bouts with criminals around the world who have found themselves with our passports because they have purchased it, like Mehul Choksi purchased Antigua and Barbuda citizenship. We have criminals in other parts of the world who purchase our citizenship. And we have some of them who actually have diplomatic passports of Dominica in violation of the 1961 UN Vienna Convention on Diplomatic Relations. And these criminals afforded the opportunity of diplomatic immunity to seamlessly move across borders and commit crimes against humanity. We have the classic case of Ali Reza Monfared, who was accused by the Iranians of embezzling $3 billion from Iran's oil sales some years ago. And he was wanted by Iran. He was living in Malaysia at the time. And in Malaysia, he was the holder of a diplomatic passport from Dominica. The Iranians convinced the Malaysian police that he was a fugitive wanted for justice in Iran, and they should capture him, they should arrest him and have him sent to Tehran. They arrested him in 2015, late 2015, and he claimed that he should not be arrested because he has immunity and he's a diplomat. And when they asked him diplomat of where, he said he's a diplomat of Dominica. The police authority in Malaysia contacted the Dominica High Commission in London to ascertain whether or not it was true that Monfared was a Dominica diplomat. And the commission, the High Commission confirmed, yes, he was a diplomat, and the police released him. After which he promptly got on a plane and came to Dominica for safe refuge. So here you had a fugitive from justice in Iran who skipped law enforcement in Malaysia on the ground that he was a Dominica diplomat, and he came for refuge in Dominica, stayed here for a number of months as a fugitive from justice, and eventually moved to the Dominican Republic, where he was picked up subsequently and sent back to Iran, where he was tried and found guilty and is now serving a 20-year jail term. This man had a diplomatic passport of Dominica. So Mehul Choksi is not unusual in the world of economic citizens who are involved in criminal, who are accused of being involved in criminal conduct and are wanted, returned from the economic citizenship locations where they are to their base country, their home country, on criminal charges. So it is for the court, it's for the court to decide, and not for us to have a horse in the race one way or the other.
Yes. Mr. Linton, I wanted to ask you now on the question of, you spoke about the rule of law and diplomatic immunity. Now, let me ask you purely as a leader, you're a politician there, you're the leader of the opposition in Dominica, and between two countries, and India enjoys great relationship with Antigua. And I believe as of this minute, India holds great respect in Dominica and holds great relations. For example, see what happened in February this year, Mr. Linton, when the Prime Minister of India and the government of India sent vaccines to your country, and your Prime Minister said that your country's prayers had been answered when no country was stepping forward, and in challenging times, defeating the clamor within the country to help the people of Antigua, Dominica, and the Caribbean nations. We sent vaccines, and that's the kind of reach out that we have done. And do you think, as a leader of the opposition, perhaps diplomacy can play a role in India getting back Mehul Choksi? It can play sometimes a big role in such cases.
Would you be talking here about vaccine diplomacy?
Yes, sir. I said, I made that as a mention on whether Dominica could perhaps cooperate with India on this issue, when India has been very, very generous.
I don't.
Caribbean nations.
Let's be clear. Let's be clear. Dominica is eternally grateful to Prime Minister Modi, his government, and the people of India for the gift of vaccines, especially at a time when vaccines were in such great demand around the world, and even in India itself, as the world grappled with the COVID-19 pandemic. And Dominica will always be grateful for humanitarian acts of that nature that help it on its way to take care of its people and to move on and to progress. But I hope you're not suggesting that as a result of assistance of that nature, then Dominica is supposed to involve itself in questionable conduct to facilitate the demands or the preferences of India in a situation involving justice.
I wasn't remotely suggesting that.
Okay, all right. No, I just wanted to be clear, because certainly Dominica has been a good friend of India. India has been a good friend of Dominica. The relationship has been good over the years, and that is why it makes us sad that our country could be involved in this matter in the way it seems the government operatives have chosen to involve us. It was totally and absolutely unnecessary, and countries in the world need to stay away from those kinds of engagements where it appears that in order to bring criminals to justice, those who have the responsibility don't mind getting others involved in criminal behavior themselves in order to ensure that justice is done. That's not civility. That's not the way. We are better world than that. We are better countries than that. And that's the only point we're making.
So are you suggesting now, from your response, are you suggesting that the government in India or agencies in India were involved in criminal behavior?
I would not know that. What I know is what has been reported, that Mehul Choksi claims he was abducted from Antigua and smuggled into Dominica. Now, what we would like to see in Dominica is a sustainable argument, a credible argument that Mehul Choksi is not telling the truth. Because after all, he, on the facts, arrived in Dominica without a passport. Now, which human being goes anywhere to another country without a passport? Which one? And why would he find himself in that position? This question of his illegal entry in Dominica is a matter that should concern not just Dominicans, but the people of India as well. How did he illegally enter or attempt to illegally enter Dominica without a passport? And why is his name not on any of the boats that were supposed to have brought him into Dominica? Why is he not on the manifest? And why are these false declarations to the authorities in Dominica not a matter of concern to the authorities in Dominica? It seems as though we at the level of government were involved in something that we should not be proud of. We cannot be involved in facilitating those kinds of questionable transactions and behaviors and interactions among people that have a criminal taint and a criminal element to them. That's not how we ought to be behaving towards each other in the global community. No country should be asking or expecting that kind of behavior from any government, friendly or not.
Now, the other point of view, Mr. Linton, is when the story broke out, there were reports that he also perhaps tried to flee to Cuba, and that he may not have been abducted at all. Abduction is a claim that he's making, his legal team is making, right?
So, okay, well, the line of questioning is bringing me into an area where I'm very uncomfortable.
Okay.
I'm not an advocate of Mehul Choksi.
Yes.
I'm not an advocate of the government of Dominica. I'm not an advocate of the government of India. I am the leader of the parliamentary opposition in Dominica with a concern about the conduct of our government in international affairs, which is why I took time to explain to you that story, nothing to do with Mehul Choksi now in India, but to do with us and a fugitive from justice in Iran and how we dealt with it.
Yeah.
Which caused concern down here as well.
Let me put it this way, Mr. Linton. I think we've covered the issue of the reported meeting, which of course you have vehemently denied. So I've heard you out completely, and I think you've explained it in great detail. I'll take your point of view and I respect that. I just want to remind you about just one point, that this man on the run and using all his resources, running from one country to another, he first ran away from India when our agencies were looking for him. He went to the USA. And from the USA, he turns up in Antigua. And from Antigua, he turns up in Dominica, and he claims abduction. Now, my only limited point is this man owns India $1.5 billion. And that's a lot of government, public money as well. And let's see where the story goes, Mr.
Well, no, but to be clear, if he owes India $1.5 billion, then India should get its money back, and India should do what is necessary to be done within the rule of law to get its money back. That's how we behave in the global community. So I'm not here saying or suggesting that Mehul Choksi should not stand trial. The concern we have has to do with the circumstances under which this human being came into our country and has been in our country over the past week. How do we explain that our authorities in Dominica broke the government's own COVID-19 entry protocols into Dominica, had him in a police cell for 4 days before he entered quarantine? What is that? Who does that? And why does the government, does the government authority put itself in that position? Oh, look, I'm seeing on your screen right now, your story your breaking story. Choksi Linton had a secret meeting on Sunday. So.
Yeah, so immediately after that, you will also see the story of our entire interview being aired. So I'll end this at this point so that I can immediately air the interview.
I wanted to do okay? Before you end. I wanted to give our very best wishes to Virat Kohli and Rohit Sharma and the other members of the Indian team as they head off to England to be part of the finals in the World Test Cricket Championship in England. We wish them well. All the best.
Thank you for that, Mr. Linton. It was good talking to you. I'll immediately put this.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.